My next guest needs an introduction because he might be the most accomplished person and most slept on person we've had on the show so far. Travon Free is a two-time Emmy Award winner for his work on The Daily Show, a Peabody Award-winning TV writer, and he most recently won an Academy Award for a short film, Two Distant Strangers. Please welcome to the Renaissance Man, Travon Free.
Jalen, man, thanks for having me, brother. I really, really appreciate it. It's such an honor to be here with you, man.
I appreciate the love. You were raised in Compton, you played basketball,
Yeah,
and even hooped in college.
yeah.
How far did you think you would go playing ball, and how did you eventually pivot into TV writing?
Man, yeah, I mean, look, I went to Dominguez High, I was teammates with Tyson Chandler and all these guys who went on to become like NBA stars. And I was like AAU ball with all the dudes who like I've seen so many of my former teammates win NBA championships. And I had the same dreams and aspirations. And I got to college, played D1 ball, Long Beach State, and we made it to the tournament. In my sophomore year, I had knee surgery. After I had just tied our school record for rebounds in a game, like second, I think it was like second place. I tied for or whatever, and I was hoping for that type of life. And once I had knee surgery, and I realized that was the end of the road in terms of like that particular dream. It was when I made that hard pivot to writing and learning the craft of screenwriting, because I had loved writing my whole life and I had always done it. And so my academic advisor was like, I know you wanted to be a film major when you got here and you couldn't because of your basketball scholarship. So maybe now that you have like a year off to rehab, you can just take some time and take some of these classes. And it changed my life. It was the thing that like showed me what the next path, or what I wanted the next path to look like. And once I started doing stand-up comedy my senior year in college, and I graduated, and I did stand-up and used it as a way to meet other great comedy people and writers, and made a lot of friends. And that ended up helping me get to the Daily Show. And then after I got to the Daily Show, it was just like a skyrocket, man. It just took off.
So, as you were falling in love with writing, and by the way, shout to Tyson Chandler. I played with him with the Bulls. That's
Yeah.
my little brother right there. And you're right, he did go on to win a championship with Dallas, have a long career, and kill it. As you were falling in love with writing, who are some of your inspirations, people that you were fans and or students of?
I mean, I was like, I wanted to learn anywhere I could, but I was like looking at the movies that I loved. It was like Spike, people like Nora Ephron and Richard Curtis, who like I just loved their movies. It was people like uh, God, just so many writers and directors that like names that I'm like Kurosawa movies are some of like the most amazing movies you can watch and study from a film craft standpoint, or Wong Kar-wai um, movies. You can like just the visual language that they teach you, which informed me kind of becoming a director like a little later in my writing career. Um, it was looking at John Singleton movies, man. Like John
Mm,
Singleton was a huge one. Like he Boys in the Hood and
classic.
Snowfall, and like the stuff that he did and was doing was so inspirational. Tarantino was a big one. Like why part of the reason why I love action movies so much, and the way he melds action with great storytelling. And um just I was just like, at that point in time I was so young, so I was still able to consume so much, spend so much time in the consumption phase of learning why great people were great at what they did, or why people were considered great at what they did. And what was unfortunate was, in the 90s and early 2000s, there wasn't like a wide variety of Black filmmakers to even
No,
pick from. Like,
still isn't.
yeah,
No,
like we had like Spike and John were like two of
that
the
was
biggest.
it.
Like, John had gotten nominated for Boys in the Hood, like, and he was the first Black director ever like to be nominated. And so it wasn't, you really leaned on like the Spielbergs and the people who the the Scorseses and the people whose movies were heralded and held up that we watched, that we loved, you know, and not for any particular reason other than like they were just good movies.
Mhm.
And so that was where you took your lessons from. And so I just took that into, you know, post college to start shaping how, or finding what my voice was, like finding what I liked about their work, but what part of me, like what I connected to, and what part of me what I do differently, what would I add to that, how do I want to tell the story. And so over time you just kind of find your own self within, uh like you probably know, like when you're young and you hooping, like we both probably had this experience, you start out emulating somebody, like
Mhm.
who do I like,
Magic
who do
for me, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And then over time you find
Like,
Jalen.
damn, I ain't Magic.
Yeah, like you, like we all learn we're not them. Like I ain't Mike, I ain't Magic, but like in doing that, you find Jalen, right? Like,
Right.
and that's how we kind of, it works the same way to me. Like whether it's writing, whether it's stand up, it's like we all start out like admiring somebody and trying to figure out, you know, how to do what they did until we, you know, start to sound like ourselves. And so that was kind of what I was going
You're extremely talented and you have a lot of range. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge that because you also talked about doing stand up comedy. And one of the things I do in multimedia, I enjoy writing. I write a column for this show that I'm going to also send you a framed copy of as
through.
a
Oh man,
small token of my appreciation of joining the
thank you.
show, but also broadening our horizons to entertain the audience. And I always thought that stand-up comedy is slept on because the hardest thing to do is stand in a room full of strangers
Yeah,
and make them laugh.
yeah.
So please talk to me how doing stand-up has affected your trajectory.
So like, I mean, the first time I ever did it in college, it was terrifying. And the first the first thing I said got a big laugh, and it immediately like suppressed that anxiety, because you felt like the thing you were most afraid of, which was not getting a laugh, you did it. And you're like, okay, now I just got to remember all the stuff that I wanted to say in the order that I wanted to say it in order for it to work. And so over time, like, you know, I don't do it nearly as much as I used to because my life has changed so much as far as TV and film is concerned. But it's still a thing that I love and still dip in and out of. But the thing that you learn when you start to do stand up is when you do have that bad set, or those bad sets, those sets where, you know, you don't get very many laughs or you don't get any at all, and you're just like, oh man, that was really rough. I stood up there and nothing worked.
Mhm.
And you go do a show after that show, maybe the same night, and you kill. Now you've learned the dynamic is not so much that, oh, I'm just a generally not funny person, a good person. It's you have to learn the skill of mastering different crowds. You have to learn how to talk to different people and talk to different
Right.
audiences. And you also have to learn to be okay with that not going the way you want it to go. And so what it is it's an exercise in ego management and ego suppression, because
Right.
your ego is the reason you're up there. Like, I bet I can make all of you laugh for 15 minutes. And it turns out I was only able to do it for 3 tonight. But you know what? Last night I did it for the whole 15 and it felt amazing. And so you end up learning to not take yourself so seriously, but you also develop a comfort in talking to any group of people anywhere, because you that emotion, that fear that people have of public speaking is what they think is at stake with what they might say or might not say. And when you realize, or when you learn to be comfortable in that exchange and the comfort and the not knowing how it's going to go, it becomes easy to talk to anybody. And that was like a huge, especially when you're pitching in Hollywood, like if you're in the, you become part of the world where you're pitching ideas, pitching TV shows, pitching movies, trying to convince people to
Correct.
give you a lot of money for a thing, you have to be able to like bring it. You got to be
Stick
able
the
to,
landing in the room.
yeah, exactly. You got to learn how to like how to be the kind of person people are like, oh yeah, I like this person. I want to be in business with you. And it's a great skill that translates into so many aspects of business and entertainment.
So you broke into a field that very few of us have been able to, and that's writing for a late night TV show.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through how you got hired to write for the Daily Show and the impact that it's had on your life?
Yeah. I mean, the daily when I got to the Daily Show, I was uh Wyatt Cenac was still there, and we were the only two black writers on the show. He left a few months after I got there, and I was then became the only black writer on the show. But to get there, that's just to speak to like your how rare and how difficult it is for us in late night. There's a handful more of us now, but back in 2012 there was not. And so I was doing stand up at the Improv, and I met this guy Rob Cutner, who I known just from social media, but he was also doing stand up, and he wrote for the Daily Show for maybe 10 years. And uh I saw someone was leaving the show. It was my favorite show at the time. I watched it every single night for years. And I asked him like, hey, like, what's the process like to submit for Daily Show? I was 26 at the time, and never in a million years thought I would get the Daily Show like at that age. And he was just like, I'll have the head writer email you. And I was like, well, that's never going to happen. But thanks for thanks for responding. And then like a week later, Tim Carvel emailed me, the head writer of the Daily Show at the time, who's now head writer of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And he asked me to submit for the show. And I was just like terrified because I wasn't expecting it to happen like that or that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And, in my mind, that opportunity to write for your favorite show, which also happens to be the most popular show in late night at the time, you think that there's people beating down the door to get in there, which there were. And I didn't have an agent or any representation. I was just chilling in Inglewood in my apartment trying to like get a job.
Right.
And I did the submission, and I initially, came in second place to the girl who got the job, who got hired. But it was like a really close second, like so close that they didn't want to not hire me. And so they ended up hiring me anyway. And getting that job was such a big deal because not only do people like where I come from, like just that's just a space we don't inhabit. And it was an interesting time because Jessica Williams, who had just gotten there, and we both were Long Beach State alumni. Like, so you got two black kids from Long Beach State who grew up in the inner city of LA and are somehow both at the same time on this very prestigious political comedy show on Comedy Central. And it just felt special, man. It was like, I didn't know, what it took me a while to adjust to the fact that it was happening, that it happened. And then you see all the doors it opens. Like you can get a meeting with anybody. You get invited to everyone's party. You get invited to everything in New York because Jon Stewart is like the biggest thing happening in New York outside of Saturday Night Live. And he's the guy everybody wants at their party. He's the guy everybody wants to talk to. And so by nature, by proximity, you get those same kind of, especially when people find out you're a writer on the show, they're like, oh shit. So you're like in it, like you're doing it.
Right.
And it just kind of sent me on this path to like get to where I am now, where like people trust your ability and trust that you can get a job done. And I just spent that from 2012 to 20 basically 18 when I moved out of late night into scripted TV, like just kind of upping my credits and like moving up that ladder creatively.
You're gonna appreciate this because I thought long about it. The theme of this show is flip the script. Here. You're an Academy Award winner, the biggest honor in the film industry,
Yeah.
right? And you won it for a short film that you wrote called Two Distant Strangers.
Yeah.
The movie's about a young man trying to get home to his dog, if you haven't seen it. And it's a classic, by the way. He's stuck in a time loop where he has to relive his death. at the hands of a cop. It's always remarkable to me, just for me, when you see your accomplishments, like winning an Academy Award and knowing that it was once just an idea that someone had.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with the concept of two distant strangers? And what's the best advice you have for someone with an idea of a film?
Yeah, I mean, like the thing you pointed out is what makes it so surreal, which is, last summer, the Oscar, winning an Oscar couldn't have been further from my mind last summer. Like it was a pandemic. George Floyd had been killed. Breonna Taylor had been
Yes.
killed. Ahmaud Arbery had been killed, and we were in the streets, man, like every day
Yes.
last summer, just out there marching, and we didn't have nothing else to do but be out there and raising our voices. And in doing that, one day this idea kind of just like crystallized in my mind of like, seeing all those names, seeing, every day at the end of the day on the news, watching the marches from around the world, and feeling like every time a new name came up, you were reliving that same cycle of emotional feelings of sadness and pain and hopelessness, and then eventually getting back to hopeful that got you back out there in the streets the next day.
Mm.
And I remember saying to Zaria, who's in the movie, is also my partner, like, it feels like living the worst version of Groundhog's Day, like where you just every day you wake up and you go through that cycle all over again. And that just stuck in my mind. And we had nothing but time at the moment, and I wasn't really doing anything creatively at the time because the show had just finished. It actually finished right before the pandemic started, so I was kind of free, like to do whatever I want. So I was like, I'm just gonna take this idea and kind of just see what comes of it. And so I told Martin Desmond Rowe, my co-director, who we were working on a different movie together at the time. Actually, we had just started writing the script, and we stopped when George Floyd happened to just kind of like take a beat. And um, I told him the idea, and he had been nominated for an Oscar for his short a couple years before, and he was like, "I hear a lot of short ideas, and a lot of them are most of them are pretty bad, and this one is amazing." And so I just went off and wrote it, and I wrote it in like 5 days, and with no stakes, just like I don't have nothing to do, so I'm just gonna do this thing. It's a 30-page script. In TV, when you get assigned a script, if you're working on a TV show, you have a week to write your 30-page script. I already know how to do that. I've been trained to do that. I could do it in my sleep. And so I went and wrote this short in a week that was 30 pages. And then I started sending it to people, and everybody was having the same reaction of like, this is amazing. Like this is really like this is really good. Like this could really be something special. And that started to grow and snowball into people wanting to be involved, and then people wanting to give us money to make it. And we didn't even know if it was possible to make it because at the time you couldn't shoot. You weren't allowed to film anything anywhere.
Right.
And
Cool.
so we just started acting as if there was going to come a time in the summer where that was going to be possible. And we raised enough money to get us to shoot. And then I went after Joey. Well, Joey was actually like suggested to me by a friend, James Samuel, whose movie The Harder They Fall comes out on Netflix this fall, which is, I don't know if you've seen the trailer for the Idris Elba, Regina King, all black Western movie, but that's his movie.
Absolutely. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Shout to them. I've been
Yeah.
accused of only loving black movies, but that's another subject for another day.
Yeah, no, James is amazing, and he had auditioned Joey for Harder They Fall, but he couldn't do it because of scheduling. So he was like, "You need Joey for this movie. Like Joey would kill this." And so he connected me with Joey, and Joey said, "Yeah." And that was the beginning of like, "Oh, we're actually gonna make this movie. Like this is gonna be a real thing." And we go through the process, and like you just don't know, man. Like you don't know what's gonna happen, but we felt like something special was happening the whole time. It never didn't feel like something special was happening. And when we started to show people early cuts of it, that was being reflected back to us. And then we started to feel like, okay, like we did something. At the very least, we're gonna walk away from this with having made a movie that was special to people, and that people like enjoyed and understood and felt like it was it spoke to the moment we were living in. And then like once the Oscar stuff came around and we got shortlisted, we were just like, oh man, like this might
Word.
this is like, okay, like we got shortlisted. This is crazy because we made this movie in 3.5 months last summer, and now here we are shortlisted for an Oscar. And
And
then
email the Oscar nominated.
right, and we, a month and a half goes by, and the nominations come out, and you hear your name called, and you're like, oh my god, like this is this like really happening? This is really happening. And then that longest period of your life is that month between nominations and the actual show, and you're just like, at that point you want it. Like even up to that point you're grateful, but when you get nominated and you're one of five, you have a 20% chance of winning. You're like, of course you want it. And so
Absolutely.
when you get there and you're in that moment, and you're hearing the names be called off on from the nominees, and there's that half a second of silence between naming the winner, that you feel like you both a winner and a loser at the same time. and, and you hear your name, and it is un is no way to describe it. There's really no way to describe it, because so much in that moment has happened, because your life and your career has just changed in the blink of an eye. And you also still have to go give a speech, and then you have to go do a bunch of interviews about it. And you just don't have time to really sit in the moment of what just happened, because it's a whirlwind after it happens. But because of how that movie happened, because we didn't set out, Two Distant Strangers wasn't a 2-year plan to make a movie, to like to go attempt to put in a festival, to go attempt to win a award. Like it was like, hey, I thought of this thing yesterday. I'm gonna go write it and let's just see what happens. And then it resulted in, like to me, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Like that to me was the best way, because the intention was just to do something authentic, to do something that like meant something to us. And we got crowned with the highest achievement you could get for it. And so, I mean, as far as advice I would give to people who have ideas for shorts, or even, features, it's like, don't don't focus on the end result, because we weren't. We just knew we were making something that we cared about, and that we would want to see to the finish line, that we wouldn't want to give up on, and that meant something to us. And and if you're telling a story that is so authentic to you, that means something to you, people will feel it.
Yes.
It will just come across, because at every stage of this movie, from writing to shooting to editing, like it was never not a serious, like, with delicate hands. Like every stage of it, we cared about what was happening, we cared about what we were saying, we cared about what people were going to see on screen, and we cared about what we were saying to the world. And the short film industry is so, it's there's so many shorts being made all the time, because they're used as a way to say, this is what I'm capable of, here's what I'm it's a calling card, it's your business card as a filmmaker trying to make it. And
Like a mixtape.
exactly, and within that will emerge some incredible filmmaking and some incredible filmmakers. But on average, people are just learning, and it's like, it's rare that somebody can make a short for the first or second time and it like captivate, you know the industry. But the goal is to just keep going and to keep doing it, and to work your way into someone giving you a feature, which is like usually short filmmakers desires, to be directors and make movies. And so I think if you just are looking for, don't look for what you think people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at like, oh, this is what people are making, or this is the short, these are the shorts that got nominated for an Oscar last year or the year before that, and this is the kind of thing that people want to like vote, like, because all you have to do is make something that feels a little scary, which we were terrified throughout this process, because it's a delicate, it's a delicate subject matter, and you don't know how people are going to respond to it. And you have to make something that feels risky and feels scary but feels authentic, that if you do maybe you don't stick the landing entirely, and you maybe your feet wobble a little bit when you hit the floor, you still believe in the story you told, and you stand by the story you told. Because the worst thing you could do is make something that you attempt to make something that you think people want to see. It ends up poor, it ends poorly, and then you have to, waver from that, or have to stand by something that is just not something you believe in. And so I think with shorts, that's a big part of it.
Well, your accomplishments, your productivity, and your voice has truly been inspiring. And particularly in interviews and on social media, you've been very open about your sexuality. You came out as bisexual, and there are a lot of people who don't believe that bisexual men exist.
Yeah,
They feel like you're either gay or not.
right.
How has coming out affected you in your career, and do you believe you've helped others by standing in your truth?
I think I came out when I was 25, and it was at a time where like gay marriage wasn't even legal in America at the time, and we were nowhere near like where we are now. Like when I see where we are now, and I look at how it still has its challenges, but the level of outward support from community to corporate, the like you drive around now and during Pride, and rainbows are everywhere on every office, every company store. Like it's such a thing now. When I was like going through that, it was not at all. Like it was very much the opposite. And so I knew I was taking a level of risk in doing it, especially like, being a college basketball player and all those things that go along with that. And it it couldn't have been a better decision, because the amount of messages that I get from people that I've gotten over the last 10 or 12 years, from parents, from kids, from like you name it, like it was it's things like, I didn't know until I saw your story. I didn't believe that this thing was this until I heard you talk about it. I didn't understand it until I read your post about it. My kid just came out to me as bi, and now I understand him in a way that I wouldn't have had I not been following you or your like it's and that happens from complete strangers to even people in the industry,
Wow.
who like people in the industry whose kids are not like their kids are not famous, and their kids are like coming out to them in various ways, and they're reaching out to me being like, like knowing your story helped me be a better parent to my kid when this happened. And uh like that to me is invaluable. Like to that, if that's all that ever happened from my just wanting to not feel like I was still in that like closed off, like not being who I really was phase of my life, then that I've done everything I wish I could, because it's changing other people's lives. It's what we talk about with visibility. It's you have to be able to see it to be it, and you have to have an example to help you get through when you think you're going through something hard and unique. And granted, I didn't have any, and there's still not really any like today. Like there are a lot of people who are gay, lesbian, or trans, but when you talk about the bi community, be it Hollywood or at large, it is still very much not really there, because of the stigmas, because of the way people think about it. Even within the LGBT community itself, it's still funny enough, you know, bi people are the largest sector of the community, the largest group within the community. But you would never know that because it's the most ignored by the organizations, by like you go to pride events and you look at how people uh, represent, and it is still like pretty much the most ignored group in in the community. And so it's part of that was a big part of the reason, which was like, well, I have the opportunity to be in all these places and do all these things. I can carry that with me and take that with me. And you know being the first Black Oscar winner for a live action short Oscar is amazing. But then when you couple that with the fact that like I also get to bring the Black community with me in telling that story and doing that thing and being on that journey, it makes it harder for the conversation to ignore you. It makes it harder for people to push it aside because, you know, I get to go tell the truth about that experience in all the spaces I inhabit. Like, it doesn't matter who I'm dating or who I'm with. Uh, I'm not straight if I'm with a woman. I'm not gay if I'm with a guy. It's I am always me, no matter who I'm with. I'm always bi, no matter who I'm with. And you have to learn to understand that and respect that. And in the same way, we've now become clear about how we talk about gender and the gender binary and how we respect people's own experience of who they are and who they want to be when they represent themselves in the world. It's the same thing we were doing with, you know, our own community, with the Black community, when we were fighting for who we wanted to be, how we wanted to be represented,
Right.
and what we wanted to be called. It was, it's you're just doing it now in a different way.
Right.
And so I take all of those fights with me everywhere. I'm Black, I'm bi, I'm 6'7", I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, like I'm all of these things everywhere I go, and I love representing all of those different communities.
And one thing you always do is stay fresh. You about your fashion, you
Yeah.
about your flavor. You keep your fashion game is A plus, and
Thanks.
plus you got a highly coveted sneaker collection.
Yeah, man.
What fueled your passion for fashion and kicks?
Kick started when I was a kid, man. Like, cause you know, when I was a kid, Jordan was still playing. So whenever a new Jordan came out, that was the only one. Like now you have 1,000 different colors of the Jordan 1 that you can buy. But when they at the time in the 90s, there was two colors. You got the red, the breads, you got the blue and black, and you got the red and white. So you had three colors of the OG ones, and then every other shoe that came out, the shoe that came out was the color. And so in pursuit of those shoes when I was a kid, you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I couldn't get like Jordans the way my friends were getting them. And like I maybe probably had two pair growing up. And I've had friends who would like every week or every couple of weeks when a new color, a new pair came out, they had them.
Standing in line, East Bay, doing whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And they come to school and everybody's crowded around like, oh, look, he got on the new 13s, he got on the new 11s. But and so it was having that experience of like one day, you know, I'll be able to like buy the shoes that I always wanted that I never had. And I just started building a collection through like sports, because you know when you play sports, I mean when you hoop AAU, you get free shoes and all that kind of stuff. And then I just started, you know, buying a pair here and there, and then it just turned into like, oh, I also want that color, and I also want those, and I also want those, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then like fashion wise, you know, I'm 6'7", 270 pounds. Like I can't just walk into a store on Melrose or Rodeo and get
No,
and get
not
anything
at
off
all.
the rack.
I
And
live it.
so,
I live it.
right,
Not at all. We
so
shop for size.
right, and everything they make is like for these little like models and fashion, these 5'8", 140-pound dudes who you know are in the magazines. And so um, that drove me to like seek out that kind of stuff for people our side. You know, like why should I be deprived of like nice, high-end feeling, fashionable stuff because I just happen to be twice your size? You know what I mean? And so that became like the driving force behind my pursuit of like high fashion for people our size, people my size. That like I want to look good just like you want to look good. I don't want to be wearing a baggy 2X t-shirt and like like jeans that just like look like two poles.
Right. Either too big in the waist or too big at the ankles.
Right, exactly. Like I want to have a nice tapered fit when I put on my clothes. Like I deserve that. And you know, like we were lucky to have Dolce and Gabbana like do our suits for the Oscars, and those were like
Killed it.
literally we put it on and they had to do no measurement. They just did it perfect. It was perfect, and it was amazing. It felt so good to wear. And that's the other thing too. It feels good, man. Like it feels good to wear, to put on your favorite Jordans, or like to put on a nice suit to go out, or like put on a nice jacket, blazer, and some nice jeans that you bought. Like those things make you feel good if you can, if you can do that for yourself. And so that's why I'm all about, like, I want to look good, feel good all the time. And even when you think you see me in public and I'm just wearing like sweats and a jacket, like a what's it called, like a bomber, little thin bomber jacket and t-shirt, it's like, yeah, but check the label.
Little something to it. Little something to it.
Right, like it looks thrown on and like casual, but like it's comfortable. It's like it's the real deal.
No question. I see the Pirelli hat and the
Oh yeah.
18 throwback shirt. It don't stop the great background.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of things that have happened that, you should be really excited about. You signed your first look production deal with Endeavor. I
Yeah.
recently also was stalking you on IG, and you were at a party with some black creatives like Diddy and Issa Rae and stuff like that. So, what is it like to be amongst the elite in Hollywood, and what can we expect next from your partnership with Endeavor?
Yeah, I mean, the Endeavor thing was really great. We had been working that out pretty much all through the end of last year, up until like maybe early February. They didn't announce it until after the Oscars, but um, that came about because there's an exec there, Eric Patilla, who bought a show from me when he was at CBS All Access, and he was the first like black exec I really like got into a like experience in a relationship with, like professionally, where I felt like somebody finally understood, like what I was trying to say and what I was trying to do in a way that other people couldn't. And he left and he moved over to Endeavor, and he's like, yo, we have all these tools over here at our disposal, and I think they would benefit you. And so we had a lot of meetings, a lot of talks, and that resulted in me, signing a 2-year TV first look with them. And now we're like in the throes of developing some really, really amazing stuff that I can't wait for people to hear about. Like, I think the first thing is gonna blow people's mind. Like, the team is unbelievable, the creative team, and it's some heavy hitters involved, and uh, some people been dying to hear from too. And as far as Diddy was a producer on our movie. Issa was my first producer when I sold my show to HBO in 2016. And it's these people I've known recently, but like people like Issa and some of the other people at that party who I've known for a long time. We've all watched our careers develop in interesting and different ways and blow up in different ways. And it's been really amazing to be amongst them and to have them to call on, when you have thoughts or ideas, or you want to talk about something that you're going through.
Mhm.
And I hope that that's a part of the community that we continue to build in this industry, because there ain't that many of us, especially on the highly successful end of the spectrum. Like, it's not that many of us. And so I think the knowledge that we're acquiring, we need to share with each other. And so that's been great. And I'm looking forward to, doing more things with these same great creatives that I've come to know. And you know, that that's been like my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of this journey is meeting not only people that you admire and people that you respect, but like getting them to take you seriously because they respect what you do.
Correct.
And they recognize that you also are a talented person and have something to bring to the table in terms of, be a creative or just as a person. And so that's been really amazing. And I can't wait for people to see, the things that, we're cooking up. And we still have, I saw the movie with Idris Elba last year that I'm still working on right now. And I'm excited for people to get to see that at some point. And it's a lot of great stuff coming up, man. Some really, really great stuff.
Absolutely. And the shirt, ladies and gentlemen, Street Fighter 2. Let's get that right with the Pirelli throwback cap. Y'all youngsters don't know nothing about that. I'm not proud to say this, but people used to get robbed and beat up for hats like that
Right.
when I was growing up. True
Yeah, man.
story.
Yeah,
And
man.
before I let you get out of here, I have a rapid fire segment called Gone in 60 Seconds. You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. What's the most impressive script you've ever read?
Oh man. Probably the Godfather script.
Classic.
Like that's
First
just a
thing that comes to mind when you hear the word sneakers app.
failed.
Correct. In
Failed.
capital letters.
Yeah.
In capital letters. You cast Dope MC Joey Badass for your Oscar-winning film. Who's another rapper you think would be a great actor?
Oh man, I think Kendrick. I
Hmm.
think Kendrick could be an incredible actor. I think he is already acting. Um, God, there's so many talented actors or rappers who I think can transition if they really wanted to. I would love to see Chance do more acting.
Mhm.
I think could be an incredible actor, and he's already kind of started to demonstrate that. So yeah, I think those two I would love to work with, like creatively.
The movies I watched, I kind of started to peep a theme. They either had a comedian and or a rapper. For whatever it's worth, as I look back at my discography, it seemed like they had one or two of both of those in a lot of the things that I watched. But lastly, you rep Compton to the fullest.
Oh yeah.
10 toes down. Name five celebrities. Five celebrities. If you had to describe that represent Compton, who would they be?
Oh, that's gonna be Ava DuVernay,
Mm,
um, big time.
Compton. He's dope.
Obviously, Kendrick is like the biggest thing happening rap wise, like
Mhm.
anywhere. Um, who else we got? I'll throw Tyson in there.
Mhm.
Tyson is
He killing them. He get fast on furious money on money on money. He just walked to the mailbox.
uh, um, Kevin Costner is from Compton.
I
Uh,
did not know that.
yeah,
He's a legend.
Kevin Costner is from Compton. Serena
Mm.
Williams. Can't forget Serena. I mean, God, there's so many more. Like, just I mean, the game, the rapper, Venus.
Chuck
Uh,
Taylor, Venus.
God, like we got some talented people coming out of Compton, man. Richard Sherman.
He
Um,
is from Compton.
like God, like Tayshaun
World
Prince.
champ. Detroit
Uh,
Pistons champion, baby. Lucky lefty. I used to go watch a ball in high school.
man, like it's a lot of I Easy E. Um,
Legend. The hologram. When I was like, yo, they got a hologram of Pac dinner easy. I'm like, where was that at? I need to be there next year. Had me trying to go to Coachella. I'm like, I ain't supposed to. But I appreciate you joining the show, man. Thanks for the love, continued success. And I
Thanks,
definitely
Jalen.
appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Jalen. I appreciate you having me, brother.
Yes, indeed.